Okay. Why is that? That should be working. Testing, testing. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to another live stream of consciousness. It's been a while since we've had one of these. Um, August, so I guess a couple months. And I've just been letting the different thoughts and things that I've been learning and stuff accumulate so that I could, you know, throw it all up on the mic here. I am a bit tired. Had quite the day of up and down and research and everything else. But um, we ball, as they say. Um, I say this basically every time that I'm going live. Just try and keep it short. Try and keep it short. This time I really want to try and keep it short. Like I'm really trying to keep it at an hour. So we'll see how it ends up playing out. I hope everyone's doing well. And yeah, I mean, so much to discuss. I mean, if you've seen the thumbnail, I really try to make the thumbnails a sort of accumulation of everything. You know, I try to dump out all the stuff that I've been learning about and whatever. And so lately, I've been actually before I get into that, how are y'all doing? What's happening in the world for y'all? I know a lot of people are graduating around this time. So any graduates in the audience? And if so, congratulations. There isn't a playground behind me. What's what's happening in There's just well, there are frogs outside, crickets. The AC is on, the fan is on, the other fan is on. So I don't know if that's what you're hearing or what, but yeah. As a lot of people streaming a bit here. I suppose I should just cover what's on the thumbnail itself, which is relatively straightforward. Let me drag that onto the page here. Uh, Boom. Okay. So uh we have Beyond Civilization by Daniel Quinn. We have Two Chairs for Anarchism by James C. Scott. We have Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States. And we have The Tyranny of Experts by William Easterly. We also have a picture of Columbus threateningly wielding a gun. A picture of Vaz, the villain, well, one of the villains from the Far Cry games, particularly Far Cry 3, probably the best one. And we have the pyramids. And maybe all of this will make sense in conjunction with each other, maybe it won't. Congratulations, by the way, Mumu, for your acceptance into university. Uh, it's an exciting time for sure. Yeah, so Vaz. Okay, so first of all, Far Cry 3 is actually one of the first games I ever like played from start to finish. It's it's one of the games that I could actually run on my computer, the computer I had at the time. That was in that sort of what I considered to be the sort of triple A like mainstream sort of game. Like I was never really into a lot of the mainstream games. I was never much of a sports game guy. I was never much of a first person shooter guy, but Far Cry 3 had its appeal. I remember when the trailer first dropped, I was just obsessed with this character and his presence and stuff. And so some years later, I finally was able to like play the game. Um, and it was really fun. I had a really good time with it from start to finish. That and like Assassin's Creed, Mafia 2, those games were some of the first games I actually played from start to finish. Um, and it had to be like quote unquote older games because my computer couldn't run any of the more recent stuff. So Vaz is actually on here because of this quote that he's pretty much known for and associated with at this point. Um, if any of you have played the game, you know he has this whole line. In fact, let me pull it up. Let me pull it up. What's the point of a live stream if I have to describe everything, right? Let me pull it up.
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy. The first time somebody told me that, I don't know, I thought they were bullshitting me, so boom, I shot them. The thing is, okay, he was right. And then I started seeing it everywhere I looked. Everywhere I looked, all these fucking pricks. Everywhere I looked, doing the exact same fucking thing. Over and over and over and over and over again. Thinking, this time is going to be different. No, 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 please. This time is going to be different. I'm sorry. I don't like the way you are looking at me. Okay? You have a fucking
I should have
problem.
probably given a warning. Vaz is a pretty intense character. So if that sort of thing is something that you're sensitive to, you should probably skip ahead a bit, or even come back in like a minute or two when the scene is over. He is a bit intense.
You, okay? Fuck you. It's okay, man. I'm gonna chill here, man. I'm gonna chill. The thing is, alright? The thing is, I killed you once already. And it's not like I am fucking crazy. It's okay. It's like water under the bridge. Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
Oh, Jesus.
So, to me, Far Cry 3 is the best of the Far Cry games. I'm not just saying that because it's the only Far Cry game I've played. I'm not just saying that because it's the popular thing to say. I think it's. Actually, I am kind of saying that because it's the only Far Cry game I've played. But still, it's, in my opinion, a really, really excellent story. And it's one that I want to return to at some point, alongside all the other three games that I've played, like Mafia 3 and Just Cause 3. Um, so I show that particular scene to make a point, right? Yeah, Far Cry 5, I remember when it was first coming out, I was like, maybe I should check it out, but I didn't hear anything positive about it. I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. So I thought of that particular scene, fast talking about the definition of sanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I thought about that scene when I was reading this passage from Daniel Quinn's Beyond Civilization. And that particular book, Daniel Quinn's Beyond Civilization, is going to come up a lot in this particular live stream because I read it in like one sitting and I had a lot of different thoughts about it. It ended up forming the basis of a video that I've been planning since almost the beginning of my channel, but I never got around to until now. And that's a video explaining like my position on civilization, which has wavered slightly, but has been fairly consistent since as long as I could remember. And I kind of go into that in the script. By the way, that video is finished. I finished it recently, but it's not coming out until January. You know how I do. I try to be ahead of my things because life keeps on happening to me. I got dengue the other day. By the way, I got that in like September, or maybe not dengue itself, but a dengue-like symptom, the dengue-like symptoms. And for those who don't know what dengue is, it's a mosquito-borne disease, not very fun to have or to carry. And the different variations of it. I had it once before 2020, and then I got hit with it again just now. So it would have been two different variations, I'm sure. Um, hello, hello everyone. Hello, hello. Far Cry 6 has a Bella Ciao cover in it. Okay, that might edge it up. I mean, I didn't hear good things about Far Cry 6 either. But you know, I get my video game opinions for the games I haven't played from White Light on YouTube. And if y'all don't know who that is, he makes these like inordinately long um videos about different games. White Light. And I tend to play them in the background when I'm doing other things, but it's pretty classic. So I think I watched yeah, The Boundless Mediocrity of Far Cry 6. So it kind of was like just like the title, I was like, meh, you know. I didn't really push myself to go and play it. But what was I saying? What was I saying? Um Definition of insanity. So I had different thoughts on civilization, and I wanted to make a video about it for the longest time. Right, I was talking about getting sick. Yes, I mean, because a lot of things happen and things come up and that sort of thing. I try to be ahead of my work so that I can actually pause and let myself breathe. Um, and plus, I have things outside of YouTube that I have going on as well. So, really trying to find that balance. So, it's whenever I have the time to work on a video, I'll work on it. So, even if I'm ahead a schedule, I kind of maintain the one video a month thing because it works for me. Um, So that civilization video is coming out, but I'm still going to talk about a lot of the ideas that I got from the book, and not really necessarily ideas I got from the book, but things that the book expressed that I was just so, I was like, wow, that's a really good way of putting it. So definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again. And I want to say that I'm repeating that over and over again to make a point, but I'm just recentering myself in the point that I'm trying to make. This passage in the book, it goes, the greatest discovery, quote, the greatest discovery any alien anthropologist could make about our culture is our overriding response to failure. If it didn't work last year, do it again this year, and if possible, do it more. Every year we pass more laws, hire more police, build more prisons, and sentence more offenders for longer periods, all without moving 1 inch closer to ending crime. It didn't work last year, or the year before that, or the year before that, or the year before that, but you can be sure we'll try again. We'll try it again this year, knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that it won't work this year either. Every year we spend more money on our schools, hoping to fix whatever's wrong with them, and every year the schools remain stubbornly unfixed. Spending money didn't work last year, or the year before that, or the year before that, or the year before that, but you can be sure we'll try it again this year, knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt it won't work this year either. Every year we try to make the homeless go away, and every year the homeless remain with us. We couldn't shoehorn them back into the mainstream last year, or the year before that, or the year before that, or the year before that, but you can be sure we'll try it again this year, knowing beyond a shadow of a doubt that it won't work this year either. To figure out a better response to failure than this, you don't, as they say, have to be a rocket scientist. I formulated this way. If it didn't work last year, or the year before that, or the year before that, or any year in recorded history, then try something different. We deeply believe in taking a military approach to problems. We proclaim a war on poverty. When that fails, we proclaim a war on drugs. We fight crime. We combat homelessness. We battle hunger. We vow to defeat AIDS. Engineers can't afford to fail as consistently as politicians and bureaucrats, so they prefer accedance to resistance, as I do. For example, they know that no structure can be made rigid enough to resist an earthquake. So, rather than defy the earthquake's power by building rigid structures, they accede to it by building flexible ones. To accede is not to merely give in, but rather to give in while drawing near. One may accede not only to an argument, but to a throne. Thus, the earthquake-proof building survives not by defeating the earthquake's power, but by acknowledging it, by drawing it in and dealing with it. I'm just so frustrated when I just look around and I just see like the same cycles happening again and again and again. It's especially frustrating in the wake of, I mean, hurricane season is still going on, but in this hurricane season, just how severe the hurricanes have been, just how rapidly they've accelerated and worsened. But the hurricane itself is not what frustrates me, because I mean we've been known about hurricanes, right? Since it's been beating up the Caribbean for years now, been beating up Florida for years now, and it's been getting worse. We knew about it. We knew that climate change was responsible for it, but we haven't really done that much about it. Okay, maybe you don't want to do anything to actually deal with the causes of the crisis. But at the very least, when the crisis comes and bites you in the butt, the least you could do is not go back and sit down where it bit you. My frustration with just spilled my water. My frustration with natural disasters is the fact that they provide us with a unique opportunity to start somewhat fresh, to approach the spatial, social, and economic problems of an area in a new light. But for whatever reason, don't matter if has 6 feet of sand inside someone's house, don't matter if somebody's buildings were just an entire street was washed away. We use natural disasters as an opportunity to rebuild the failures of before. Maybe a little tweak here and there, maybe a little wall here or there to improve its resilience to hurricanes and earthquakes. Instead of saying, damn, maybe we need some proper mangroves in place. Maybe we should probably not rebuild here. Maybe I'm using Florida as an example. Maybe that whole situation where there was no proper mechanism of evacuation in place, and so many people were trapped. So many elderly people and disabled people and families were trapped, and of course, in crisis, capitalism wasted no time in taking advantage of people with the prices that they were putting on so many things. Maybe something could change there. I don't know. I don't know. Let me see what y'all say. It makes some really inspiring videos. You have a reading list, maybe just a single book that you think people need to read. Um, yeah, if I had to put it down to just like a couple books, I think. Hold on, let me pull it up. I haven't published it yet because I'm thinking of establishing a website, so I could have resources and stuff in place, and I could have all that there, not be just solely based on YouTube because of the precarity of that. Um, but just give me a second. Let me see if I could find where I put this list. Right. I think At the Cafe is a must read. I think it's really excellent by Erico Malatesta. I think Anarchy, a Graphic Guide is a really good overall history. I think Anarchy Works is one of the first anarchism books that I ever read. I found it was a really great introduction. Prefigurative Politics is a really good contemporary book. It's by Paul Rickstad and Sofa Shaugredin. Words of a Rebel by Peter Kropotkin is a bit more historically focused, but it's still pretty impactful. It was pretty impactful to me. Before I was even completely like established in my anarchism, I found The Authoritarians by Bob Altemeyer to be really fantastic. And I also found Debt, The First 5,000 Years by David Graeber to be really impactful as well, just in my development of questioning history. Um, I also read Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire much later than I probably should have, even though I'd already developed a similar critique of the education system long before I picked up the book or even heard of it. It's still a really fantastic read. Puts a lot of things into words in a really excellent and eloquent way. I think Seeing Like a State by James C. Scott is a really good overview of understanding how state structures operate. The Colonizer and the Colonized by Albert Memmi is a really good overview of colonialism and the impact on people. Mutual Aid by Dean Spade is a good practical sort of look at that concept in a contemporary sense. And of course, there's Mutual Aid by Peter Kropotkin, which is that sort of older look at the history of mutual aid. Boy, And I actually recently read Two Chairs for Anarchism um, in a couple sit-ins by James C. Scott as well. And that one had a lot of really interesting points. It's a sort of a scattered kind of collection of different ideas, a couple of pieces here and there. Um, he talks about, in one instance, anarchist calisthenics, or the idea of, as a sort of a healthy maintenance of disobedience, the ability to disobey authority, to not totally find yourself in submission to arbitrary, inane, and ridiculous rules. And it's a really good preparation for the larger acts of defiance. You can't exactly expect people to be able to, engage in a strike if they can't do something as simple as jaywalk, you know? So like having that sort of de-deification of the law taking place is really valuable. Um, Scott also talks about like the tension between vernacular and official order, and he kind of touches on that the vernacular versus the official in Seen Like a State as well. But that's another good thing that he explores a lot in Two Chairs for Anarchism. And it's called Two Chairs for Anarchism, by the way, because Scott, from everything I can tell, was not actually an anarchist. He was in some ways sympathetic to anarchism, but from I've never seen him like explicitly identify as an anarchist. I've seen him write about anarchism and explore anarchism, but to say that he was an anarchist, I mean, he calls it Two Chairs for Anarchism instead of Three Chairs for Anarchism because, you know, he wants to explore the merits of anarchism without necessarily fully endorsing it. Another thing he talks about in um, in Two Chairs for Anarchism is this idea of infrapolitics. A lot of it is just about like these smaller forms of resistance that can pave the way for larger struggles. And infrapolitics, as he describes, is just these subtle forms of resistance, things like absenteeism or poaching, that are used as tools by the powerless to, in some cases, be just as impactful as overt protests, especially when you have these extremely repressive regimes where open defiance is not as practical. You have these, smaller acts of defiance that can uh, build up and sort of snowball over time. So that's some of my uh, reading recommendations. Hey, Elliot, what's up? Um, Franz Fanon, any opinion on his works? I believe the only Fanon book that I've read, I tried to read Black Skin, White Masks, did not get very far. I don't think I've picked it up since. But I read The Wretched of the Earth many years ago. I don't recall much of the details of it, but I think he was an intriguing and I don't want to give a nothing book of an answer, but I found him to be a solid writer. I don't have, unfortunately, because his work is not recent in my memory. I don't have much more to say that spring into mind. Um, So all I can see is he was, from what I can remember, a pretty good author with some interesting ideas. And that's kind of a general non-answer, but that's what I can muster right now. I do have a good reads, but I don't have it publicly because I don't want to be embarrassed by some of the things that I read or have read. Let's see what else people are saying. Set up my own website is a great idea. Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually looking into the privacy dimension of it and how I could maintain my private information while still having a website because I hear that that's how a lot of people tend to get caught up. It's like the information is just publicly available, but there are easy ways to cover that from what I've seen in my research so far. So, well, Fireball, I know you're a jaywalking master. I think every Trinidadian is a jaywalking master. We have to be. Have I seen any of Who stuff or Nomads? James C. Scott? I haven't. I don't think so. If he covers that in his like the book that he did on Southeast Asian anarchism or anarchic cultures, whatever the case may be, um, I haven't read that one yet, so I don't know what he says about that. Um, you're thinking recently we need a more prominent DIY movement when it comes to certain essentials like water, electricity, and communications. Yeah, I've been saying that. Like, we do not want to be in a position where we are so reliant on the state for the provision of these essentials that, any sort of collapse and we are completely unable to defend for ourselves or handle ourselves. In one of my solar punk solutions videos, I did talk about microgrids as one option for community energy resilience and autonomy. Communications, I think we definitely need to explore other forms of communication. I'm not saying we have to go back to like smoke signals or anything like that, but having a non-online mechanism of communication, both short and long distance, I think could be really helpful. At least having some sort of protocol in place. It's actually something I worry about sometimes. Like if there were an incident to take place, I have some loved ones on the other side of the country, and if I have no way of contacting them, like I'll be like I would be very concerned. And I know in a lot of situations where there's an emergency, it's best to stay put. Um, but I wouldn't want to stay put in that kind of situation. I would want to make sure they're okay. I don't really have a solution to the communications thing, especially if like that sort of energy infrastructure goes down. Water, of course, rainwater harvesting, I think, is a must. Yeah, we definitely need more DIY stuff happening prominently. Have I read anything of Miriam Kaba's? And who is Miriam Kaba? Let's see. American activist, grassroots organizer, educator. Oh, okay, right. She's the author of We Do This Till We Free Us. I haven't read her work, no. I haven't. I've heard of her work, but I haven't read it. No. Which of her books did you read? If you don't, did you read? And if you don't mind sharing, um, have I read Chomsky? I I'm not a. I haven't read Chomsky. I've seen some of his lectures, and I'm not too impressed. And I'm not. I haven't had the best impression of his understanding of anarchism, to put it cordially. I think he's had some, decent impact in linguistics, although I've also heard that some of his linguistics ideas have been called into question as well. But yeah, have I been able to check out then about what sees Indigenous Peoples' History of the United States? Right. So, in writing my script for my script on civilization, which I mentioned earlier that I'll be releasing in January. In writing that script, I do have this line near the introduction where I talk about, and I'm gonna give away some to me, and let me gas myself up a little bit. I find it was a bit of a bar. Y'all will let me know if that sounds like a bar to you. But there's a section in the introduction where I'm saying, so I'm talking about the context is I was talking about like my childhood, like reading of history and that kind of thing. And so then I say, but as I matured, I became discomforted by the notion of civilization, particularly by who was subject to it and who was disparaged outside of it. I shifted from Usborne and DK to Haymarket and AK. To me, that was a bar. Anyway, and with that newfound historical knowledge of class struggle, I became more curious about the people's histories and the histories according to so-called great men. And that's the line there. And when I made that point, I just realized I started jumping, making myself jump. When I made that point in the script, I'm like, so I've picked up on some elements of people's history from various sources, various short essays, and you get some of those elements in the work of Graeber, um, and in some of Scott's work as well. Not as much, but I realized that I haven't actually read one of the titular books in people's history, which is, of course, Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States. So I was thinking that, and I was like, damn, I need to. There's certain books that I don't mind just downloading and just reading virtually. And then there are other books, particularly the long books or the impactful books, that I know for sure that I want to have in my hand. Like I want to be sitting in my bed, cock up with my lamp next to me and eating my oatmeal and reading my book. Or I want to be on my couch or wherever. I want to have physical books in my hand. And so I'm like, damn, I need to go and order this now. And I don't know when, I don't know if I could thing because to ship in anything in Trinidad is like, don't even bother. You know, like I tend to time things in a way that myself or someone that I know they come from the US, they could just bring it in their suitcase because I'm not a big fan of doing that whole clearing it through um, customs and all that. So I'm like, damn, I need to get this book. I need to get this book. When am I going to get this? Because I really want to read it. People's History of the United States, right? And so then I go to this event um, in one of those like sort of cooler cafes that have like the free books to like take one, leave one kind of thing. So I go there, and lo and behold, it's this extremely old, and when I say old, I mean the pages are like yellowed copy of A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. And I'm like, damn, what a steal, what a find. So I got it. I didn't have to buy it. I got it for free. And I'm in the process of reading it. I recently read the first chapter, but I kind of put it on the back burner because I was finishing up Children of Dune. Um, and I'm still looking to find the next book. I haven't seen it in any of the bookstores so far. God Emperor of Dune. Um, but yes, I finished Children of Dune recently. Interesting ending. I wasn't expecting a happy, a happy ending for one of the spoilers I've heard, so I wasn't surprised per se. Um, but now that I'm done reading that, I can get into people's history. So I read the first chapter recently. Not much new information, but I like what Zinn is setting up so far. And to answer that person's question, I have not read Dunbar Ortiz's Indigenous People's History of the United States, but it is on my list for sure. It's like pretty much right after. Let me see what else people are saying. Let's see. Big into privacy and cybersecurity. I am big into privacy. I'm not that solid on cybersecurity in terms of like my actual skill with it, but I am really into privacy. I think we've gotten too comfortable with the sort of subtle encroachments on our privacy, and it's not even encroachments in the physical realm where you're in a public place and you share common areas, that kind of thing. Like in a situation in a world of commons, there is gonna be some understanding that okay, privacy it'll exist in some spheres still, but it may not exist in this sphere. All the people who get really frustrated by like having people in the kitchen while they're in the kitchen, myself included, we're gonna have to work on that. Not to say that people won't have their own personal kitchens, but in a world that will hopefully proliferate communal kitchens and communal eating as well, um, we have to get used to that sort of balance. But I'm not a fan of the encroachment of privacy online. I'm not a fan of the proliferation of like videotaping people in public and posting them on social media. And I'm really not comfortable yet with revealing myself online, as in my face. Um, Nothing's wrong with my face. I don't think. But I know that that's like you can't really put that cat back in the bag once it's come out. So I'm really hesitant to do that and not be able to undo that. I like my privacy. So that's where I'm at. Okay, let's see. I I'll tell you, yes, I do not have Tariq Nasheed books in there. If you want to know what it is that I'm so embarrassed about, I'll be happy to reveal some of the less bad ones. Okay? For example, hold on. I have to pull up my Goodreads to actually get this. But no, there are no Tariq Nasheed books in my listing. Am I aware of any anarchist organizations in Trinidad? Not specifically anarchist organizations. I know of anarchists in Trinidad. I know of, and they're involved in various different groups. But to say that there's like a specifically self-identified anarchist group, not so. At a point in time, I did have a book club that I was running. But extenuating circumstances sort of dismantled that. But to say there's like a specifically anarchist group, no. Work in progress. Let's see what else. Okay, so it finally loaded, and so like I have like Frindo, I have the Alex Rider books. I have what else have I? I have like this really bad Wattpad book that I read several years ago. Um, I have all the Big Nate books that I read as a child. I have the whole Gone series. I have the On the Run series. The Gone series by Michael Grant, for those who know. That one had me in a chokehold for a really long time. Um, yeah, just a lot of like books that I read as a child that I'm not really that from a kid, like I don't need that associated with my public reading list. Ooh, also, I just saw this book in my list that I have not seen in a really long time. If you've ever read Hanging On to Max by Margaret Burchard, that book, I read it in one afternoon, and I threw that book across the room. It was a library book, but I still threw it across the room when I was done. I was just so it had a really profound impact on me. And just the memory of it is like, wow. Moving on. People are asking my views on libertarian municipalism, Bookchin, communalism, social ecology. I'm a big fan of social ecology. Bookchin, he has some good ideas, some not too much of a fan of. It's not really something I could get into much depth in right now, though. Let's see. I don't want to do that thing where I spend the whole time catching up on chat. Let me see if anything jumps out to me. Do I think there should be a distinction between post-civ and anti-civ? Um, I haven't read enough quote unquote anti-civilization literature to say. My civilization position didn't really necessarily develop out of reading post or anti-civilization literature. The post-civilization literature I did read, which was Strangers in a Tangled Wildernesses, two primers on post-civilization. That did show up some of my perspective on civilization. It kind of was like, okay, I'm feeling this, but I kind of came around to the idea somewhat on my own. I was just not comfortable with the idea. Like the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this is anyway. Let me not spoil the video. Y'all will get that. All right. I don't want to be like I have my gathered thoughts that I've written down, and it's so much better than anything I could say off the cuff, in my opinion. But to say that there needs to be a distinction, I couldn't say. What I will say though is that I do prefer the term post civilization because it does, as Daniel Quinn's book Beyond Civilization alludes to, it does allude to something after, something better, something proceeding. Um, civilization rather than simply being against something. It's for the same reason that when I do my next video on degrowth, I'm not gonna call it degrowth. I'm not gonna really even mention it as degrowth. I understand the arguments for the term degrowth, but I find the term post growth to be a bit more constructive in terms of just facilitating the conversation. So I'm gonna sort of explore it from that angle instead. Whenever that video I start working on it and fleshing it out. Pillars of the Earth. I'm not familiar. Pillars of the Earth. Let's see. Or am I? Pillars of the Earth is a historical novel by British author Ken Follett about the building of a cathedral in the fictional town of Kingsbridge, England. How have I not heard of this? It sounds really familiar. The plot sounds familiar. But yeah, Great Man Theory sucks. What are your thoughts on strong towns? I have not heard of strong towns. Let's look it up together. Strong towns. Bottom Revolution to rebuild American prosperity. It's a non-profit organization. Okay, Charles L. Moran. Okay, let's check this out and let's check out the book. The book came out in 2019. A New Way Forward for Sustainable Quality of Life in Cities of All Sizes. Strong Towns, a bottom revolution to build American prosperity. Ugh, brother, I'm sorry. I find it really frustrating when books that might have good ideas packaged within them are like basically oriented entirely towards an American audience. Um, unless the ideas within Strong Towns can literally only be applied in the United States urban development scene. Okay, but I'm seeing the arguments on the other side as well. I understand the need to focus your scope a bit. So I get that as well. Okay, I'm talking myself out of this frustration. But okay. Um Let me not knock it till I've read it. I just whenever I like I'm reading something like really solid or I find a good idea and I get a little bit annoyed when authors tend to focus or just media in general tends to focus so much on Americans and on America. Um, Also seeing financial resiliency through civic engagement, American Post, urban planning, walkability. I mean, I'm sure they're gonna have some, or they've had some, positive impact. To have any strong thoughts on it, it just seems like a civic organization. All right. Boom. But yeah, I mean, of course, positive and anti are considered different things. People do make that distinction. It's just not something I've looked into enough. I know there's a distinction between positive and anarchist primitivism. Um, Positive is pretty strongly against it from everything I've read. So it's interesting that they get conflated sometimes. Read The Forever War. Okay. The Forever War. Military science fiction novel. Oh, this I've heard of this. I've heard of this. Yeah, considered one of the best science fiction. I do read the YouTube chat, Salim. I'm just kind of jumping in between it and what else I have going on. The various things to yap about. All right. I'm not a fan of Anprims. I don't think it's possible nor desirable. to pursue that sort of system on a societal scale as a lifestyle. I have no qualms per se as a personal lifestyle choice. You do you. So the YouTuber Anarch talks about building all power structures to fuel dual power. It doesn't seem clear to me how to do it. If you have little time, little money, can I help you? Um, well, I have to know your circumstances, and that's the thing. When people ask me for advice on like how they can get involved, it's really difficult for me to give anything other than a general answer of school, workplace, neighborhood, because I don't know like your specific circumstances, and also your time constraints, and also your resource constraints, also your abilities or disabilities, your skills and lack of skills. So other than saying, you know, talk to your neighbors, see what situations need to be addressed in your neighborhood, or talk to your coworkers and see what issues in the workplace need to be addressed, and sort of build a consciousness on that basis, or in a school setting, agitating, whatever, without having the context of the specifics, it's kind of difficult to see what is possible. That's why I think content creators going to give you general suggestions and general ideas, and it's up to you to sort of find a way to apply that to your situation. But I feel you, like I feel you completely. I know how difficult it is when you have very little time and little money. Um, when I was working in an office, that was the most depressing time of my life, and I didn't have time to do anything. I worked, and then I came home and I ironed my clothes the next day, and I washed dishes and I ate and I went to bed. So I feel you. Okay. So I did say I would be jumping around a bit. And there was something else in Beyond Civilization that, oh, it's actually really applicable. In one section of the book Beyond Civilization, Daniel Quinn says, and I quote, "You don't have all the answers. You don't have to have all the answers. Certainly, I don't have them. It's always better to say I don't know than to fake it and get into hot water." Make people formulate their own questions. Don't take on the responsibility of figuring out what the difficulty is. Never try to answer a question you don't understand. Make the askers explain it. Keep on insisting until it's clear, and 9 times out of 10, they'll supply the answer themselves. End quote. Quinn is giving advice here on basic political engagement, and the kind of political engagement that we are interested in, which is the sort that seeks to not just critique and challenge and reform the world as it is, but the kind that actually is about building something better. And the struggle that we have as people who are trying to build something better is that you're basically accosted for not like printing out the new society in whole cloth with ready-made explanations for everybody's questions and a solution for everything. rec- Intellectual humility, recognizing you're not going to have all the answers. Some of those answers can only be figured out through experience. Some people are not going to be convinced by words, they're going to be convinced by example and action. That helps. And so I think that's what Quinn is trying to get at here. He also says in that same passage, quote, "People will listen when they're ready to listen and not before. Probably, once upon a time, you weren't ready to listen. Let people come to it in their own time. Nagging or bullying will only alienate them. Don't waste time with people who want to argue. They'll keep you immobilized forever. Look for people who are already open to something new." And when people ask me why it is, oh, you don't get into drama, or you don't do debates, or you don't do this, that, and the other, why is that? Why not in the bacchanal? My answer is really that there's no point in it. Most times there's no point in it. Not to say that I'm not a consumer of that sort of material from time to time. I'm really taken in some of the current content creator to content creator discourse, if you know, regarding Palestine. But I find it a waste of time to try and argue with people who kind of already have their mindset when there are already so many people who don't have their mindset yet, or people who are already open to what your position is. Not to say that you shouldn't engage with contrary perspectives and try to advance and challenge your ideas. I just don't find anonymous internet debates to be uh, useful in that. I find real life conversations, discourses with people that you know and trust, people who you have an established rapport with, or standard of respect and decency with, rather than just random strangers, especially when you're talking to people who are in your immediate vicinity. Their concerns, their questions, their issues, and the solutions you can come up with together are going to have far more impact than just winning an argument with some stranger in Budapest at like 3 o'clock in the morning. So that's my stance on that, and I think Quinn had some really solid words there, and he also had solid words in another aspect of things that I want to quote real quick. But let me see what else the comments are saying. Q asks me, I saw this video. If I saw that, Q says, I saw this video response to your video, Why States Fail Humanity, and I was wondering what your response would be. It was made by this ML guy, I think. I don't really engage with response videos to my stuff. Yeah. I don't engage with Marxist Leninists either. Um, so I need to get into that diatribe now. How do I say this? I find I don't know if I'm in the mood to get into that rant now. All right, I find it frustrating to engage in conversation with Marxist Leninists. Um, just in general, our worldviews are hardly compatible. And when one approaches a dialogue with the position that one's theory is self-evidently correct on the basis of Marx or Engels or Lenin saying it so, it's an arrogance um, that their theory should be the measure and stick upon everyone else should be based on the understanding of the world. I can't engage with that. I'm not interested in engaging with that. My target audience is entirely different from the sort who are interested in cloaking themselves in the aesthetics of dead regimes. So I don't really take them on. I'm also in particular irritated, annoyed, disrespected by the condescension that many of the ones that I have interacted with in the past tend to engage with. But it's a condescension that has an ideological through line going back to Lenin. If you've read much of Lenin's work, the sort of arrogance he possesses, I don't want to get into the character of Lenin himself, but I'll speak of my experience with Marxist Leninists. They tend to throw around terms like materialist and idealist. And materialist, when used by them, tends to mean when you've agreed with Marx's or Lenin's specific analysis. And if you aren't materialist in the same sense that they mean it, or if you don't reach the conclusions that they reach, then you're not a materialist to them. You're an idealist, where you disagree with them and you want something that they think is too radical or too different or impossible to achieve. It's an insult, not an argument. And I don't engage with people who are insulting to me or to my ideas. I understand that ideas have to be challenged, but it's hard to take certain challenges seriously when you can tell based on the formulation of that challenge, the idea, that the person doesn't actually understand the idea. I find challenges within anarchist circles to be far more productive and invigorating because there is, I think, a degree of humility from my experience of people recognizing, "Oh, well, we don't really have an answer to this yet, or there are a couple different ways that this can go, or we just kind of have to trust that people will figure it out." Um, and I prefer that sort of engagement rather than, this is the law, this is the party line, this is the thing. Um, to clarify what I was saying about materialism, I know the Marxist-Leninist position is that materialist analysis leads to conclusion the working class has to seize state power to bring about revolution. They see the state as this necessary tool that's going to manage transition to a classless society. I fundamentally disagree with that. And so our views on materialism diverge. To me, in my view, from my perspective, from my analysis, the state itself is a product of hierarchical power relations. It's tied to other systems of oppression like capitalism and patriarchy. And I don't think there is any world where you can use something that's designed to centralize control and coercion to create a truly liberated society. I'm not really going to get into the weeds of, oh, well, they define the state differently, or if somebody wants to engage with anarchism, I think they need to engage with it from an anarchist analysis of the state. But I think there's just this assumption that one definition is just, completely correct. Whereas, in my video, I would have spoken about multiple different definitions, would have engaged with several different perspectives on the state. And there isn't any one that I've settled on, just ones that I find more useful than others. To me, anarchism offers a more consistently materialist approach because it looks at how the systems of domination that we have, any system of domination, not just capitalism, any system of domination, how it emerges from material conditions and entrenched and self-entrenching power structures. I'm looking at how these systems emerge through historical and economic processes, and I'm focusing on how a new world could emerge through different historical and economic processes, through different practices, practical strategies that face our current material reality and take an honest look at what it will take to shape the consciousness, the powers, the drives of the people so they are actually capable of undertaking and carrying out and shaping a truly liberated reality. To me, seizing the state is not a step towards my goal. And so I don't really find much allegiance with Marx Leninist. I don't find the idea that their conclusions from their materialist analysis, I don't find their materialist conclusions to be complete. And so when people ask me, to talk to this ML YouTuber or engage with this or da 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 da, that's not what I see myself doing. That's not what my focus is. My focus is, well, first and foremost, my focus is on learning and exploring as much as possible. That's the tagline. It's been in my bio since I started the channel. But I'm not here as part of some leftist movement. I've said before I don't really consider myself a leftist. Um, I made a whole video about that, leftist disunity. You should watch it. But because I don't really see Marxist-Leninists as some people who are on the same side as me in some grander narrative. I don't find their perspectives offering much in terms of or having much relevance to my goals. My precious time is not something that I want to spend on them. I've seen the arguments. I've watched the videos. I've even checked out some of the books. Oh, and there's my timer. But yeah, I've seen the arguments. I've watched the videos. I've even checked like some of the books. Um, I'm can't say I was impressed. I'll leave it at that because I really don't want to uh expend any more energy on this particular conversation because I know how it can unravel and devolve. But the crux of my perspective is just that I haven't derived much value so far from what Marx Leninists have produced and have had to say. I find their approach, uh, the in my experience, has been arrogant, condescending, and myopic, and it will never really be something that I want to spend much time on. Let me see. Yeah, see what else people are saying. The only reason I ask is because I want to know how to respond to people like that. I don't think I haven't seen a productive way to do so. I really haven't. Because you have to understand that we really are coming from entirely different intellectual and historical traditions, and there was some overlap, and some people seem to like be entirely focused on that overlap, the overlap of anarchism and Marxism. But outside of that overlap, there's this massive like field of other possibilities. In terms of like this history of anarchism, the history of like non-communist anarchism, something I've recently been doing a lot of research on. Um, I just anarchism as its own like tradition and political philosophy and ideology and history is something that tends to get sidelined in this grander notion of leftist history or this grander notion of leftist unity, and it's not something that I see much appeal in. And I think that when you can free yourself from that sort of implied obligation that, or you have to engage with people who want to rehabilitate the reputation of the USSR, when you no longer feel the inclination or the necessity to engage with that, I find that you free up yourself to engage with the, quite frankly, untapped depth of anarchism as a political philosophy, as a life philosophy, and this is just some of the implications. I mean, there's so many texts that haven't even been translated into English yet. There's so many texts that being discovered and delved into by people who are particularly dedicated to the cause. When I first discovered the sort of work Sean P. Wilbur was doing, I was really quite impressed because I had this very surface level impression of Proudhon. Not to say Proudhon is not like a flawed guy, but he had a lot more going on than I thought I gave him credit for. And the way a lot of his ideas were presented to me versus how I've actually come to understand them, they've rounded out my perspective. I feel like I've rounded out my perspective on anarchism a lot more than if I had spent all my time trying to engage with this narrow window of history of like the first international and Kronstadt. You know, I feel like there's a lot more going on that we could engage with outside of those interactions. Yeah, already. I too have zero tolerance for genocide, dictatorship, authoritarianism, and not learning from history. Um, like I, let me drink some water. Boy, am I thirsty. Am I thirsty? Actually, boy, am I thirsty.
am I thirsty? Am I thirsty? Am I thirsty?
Oh, Ernie. Ernie, if you're so thirsty, why don't you just get up and get yourself a glass of water, huh?
Oh, well, because, Bert, I'm so tired.
No.
The only thing I am more than tired is thirsty. And I am thirsty.
Oh.
Am I thirsty?
Oh, all right. I get the hint. I will get you a glass of water.
Oh, Bert, would you do that for me, Bert? Oh, what a nice guy Bert is. Go out and get a glass of water for me like
All right.
that?
Here you go. Here is one glass of water, Ernie. There you go.
Oh, thank you, Bert. I really
Good night.
appreciate that, Bert.
Yes, of course you do.
Very nice of you.
Good night.
Oh, my. But am I thirsty? Am I thirsty? Am I thirsty?
All right. One more glass of water.
Okay. All right. My 1 hour timer went off, which means, we're getting down to the finish line. We are getting down to the finish line. I think, let me see what else I have in my notes I wanted to talk about. Let me see. Ooh, I want to read another passage from Beyond Civilization, which is, who wants to build a pyramid? Quote, the worker hordes who built the pyramids of Mesoamerica were not more miserable than the ones who built the pyramids of Egypt. The workers of Mesoamerica merely perceived themselves as having an alternative to misery, which they eventually exercised by walking away. We didn't, so we slogged on, building a ziggurat here, a Great Wall there, a Bastille here, a Maginot Line there, and on and on and on, to the present moment, when our pyramids are not being built at Giza or Saqqara, but rather at Exxon and DuPont and Coca-Cola and Procter & Gamble and McDonald's. I visit many classrooms, and the students, one way or another, always bring me round to a point where I ask how many of them are champing at the bit to get out there and start working on the pyramids their parents worked on throughout their lives and their parents before them. The question makes them uneasy because they know they're supposed to be absolutely thrilled at the prospect of going out there to flip burgers and pump gas and stock shelves in the real world. Everyone's told them they're the luckiest kids on earth, parents, teachers, and textbooks, and they feel disloyal not waving their hands at me. But they don't. The next passage reads, quote, it took Khufu 23 years to build his Great Pyramid at Giza, where some 1,100 stone blocks, each weighing about 2.5 tons, had to be quarried, moved, and set in place every day during the annual building season, roughly 4 months long. Few commentators on these facts can resist noting that this achievement is an amazing testimonial to the Pharaoh's iron control over the workers of Egypt. I submit, on the contrary, that Pharaoh Khufu needed to exercise no more control over his workers at Giza than Pharaoh Bill Gates exercises over his workers at Microsoft. I submit that Egyptian workers, relatively speaking, got as much out of building Khufu's pyramid as Microsoft workers will get out of building Bill Gates' pyramid, which will surely dwarf Khufu's 100 times over, though it will not, of course, be built of stone. No special control is needed to make people into pyramid builders, if they see themselves as having no choice but to build pyramids. They'll build whatever they're told to build, whether it's pyramids, parking garages, or computer programs. Karl Marx recognized that workers without a choice are workers in chains. But his idea of breaking chains was for us to depose the pharaohs and then build the pyramids for ourselves, as if building pyramids is something we just can't stop doing. We love it so much. End quote. I don't fully agree with that characterization of Marx at the end there, but what do you all think of that quote? Who wants to build a massive stone Tyrannosaurus Rex hybridized the laser cannon? I can't say I'm too enthusiastic about that one either, although it's significantly cooler than what a lot of the pyramid builders of today are working on. Oh, speaking of quotes, there's actually from an unlikely source something I read. It was in Children of June, and it was I believe Jessica, Paul's mom, Benny Gesserit. She was making a point, and I'm not a fan of the Bene Gesserits. I'm not really a fan of any of the characters in the Dune series. They all kind of seem pretty terrible in their own ways. But there's this point where she says, I stand in the sacred human presence. As I do now, so should you stand someday. I pray to your presence that this be so. The future remains uncertain, and so it should, for it is the canvas upon which we paint our desires. Thus, always the human condition faces a beautifully empty canvas. We possess only this moment in which to dedicate ourselves continuously to the sacred presence which we share and create. That is beautiful. That to me sounds like she's arguing against like prescience, like the ability to see the future in this passage, if I recall correctly. But yeah, I'm when I hear that, I'm like, wow, that could be a really solid conclusion, like a kind of a call to action for like one of my videos, you know? Like, yeah, we don't know the future. It's uncertain, and we could use that uncertainty to our advantage. We could spend this moment, this present moment, building something better. That's beautiful. I mean, it comes from the mouth of a member of the Bene Gesserit organization, which has basically just been running this eugenicist program for the past few hundred years of the Dune universe's history. But it's still a beautiful sentiment. Beeping in the background, well, there's the fan, the other fan, and frogs and crickets outside. So that might be one of the things that you're hearing. Speaking of sentiments, though, the other sentiment that I kind of wanted to talk about, that occurred to me recently, is like regarding the afterlife, right? And I sort of come to this position. Well, I don't believe in God, right? And I don't believe in any religion, really. I used to be Christian growing up and stuff, but not anymore. I deconstructed. And one of the things, I mean, deconstruction is kind of a lifelong thing, right? I still engage a lot with theology from a critical perspective. One of the books that I'm reading is God and Anatomy, and there's this particular critical theologist professor that I tend to pick up the info from time to time. But yeah, the idea of the afterlife is something that really came to mind because I've had some recent passings, and I think I tend to think about my own passing quite a lot. And if this heavy subject that we're getting into is difficult for anybody to listen to, that's perfectly fine. I am not. I have no such inclinations or ideations, but I do think about how, like, at any point in time, like seriously, like if you can't handle this conversation, feel free to leave. Right? I do think about how at any point in time you could just drop down and die, right? Or you could be in bed lying down and you just die, right? Or you just go to sleep, you don't wake up, or you get into a car accident, or any number of things. You just have like an aneurysm, or like an arrhythmia, or whatever, a stroke. And so I have things in place already of if I were to pass any point in time. Also, somebody could just kill you. That's an unfortunate reality. Uh, Murder rates in Trinidad's pretty bad right now. So I have things in place if anything were to happen to me. in terms of like what I expect to take place with everything that I have, all the fingers that I have in the different pots. But because I think I recognize, like to me, I feel like the afterlife is this really comforting idea. Like from as long as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a spectator, like after I die, like just kind of float around and watch what happens. Um, as vain as it may sound, I want to like be able to attend my own funeral and see what people say. I want to see like what happens to my loved ones like after I pass and that kind of thing. And I would like to like be able to experience the things I maybe didn't get to experience in life afterwards. But in deconstructing, and I'm fine confronting this reality, at least what I know to be reality, in my experience, which is that I don't think there is an afterlife. I think it's a comforting idea, but I think at the end of the day, we are just animals that have this spark of experience through the flow of energy in our minds and in our bodies. And when that ceases, our experience also ceases. I don't really believe in like soul and that sort of thing as something extra physical or supernatural. Um, and so that caused me to sort of appreciate. I try to appreciate life as much as I can, not just my own but other people's lives. Appreciate the time that I have with people. Um, appreciate the need to like try and experience new things as often as possible to extend one's life, because it's true that time does seem to go by faster as you age, but part of that is because we get into these routines, and in these routines we just time will just fly because nothing new is being experienced. We're not making new memories. And so I really want to stave that off for as long as possible, and I want to appreciate my life for all that it is, and then I want to go in peace. Whether I finished everything I've wanted to finish or not, I just want I'm able to accept that this is it. And I think what I worry about, and this is moving out of my own personal perspective and going into, I suppose, and my own personal perspective and like way of navigating the world. I'm talking now about my perspective as it relates to like society. I think that this, and this again, this is my opinion. I think that this sort of collective belief in some sort of vague afterlife, whether people believe in reincarnation, or whether they believe in a heaven, or whatever people, whether people are religious or not, I tend to find they have some sort of afterlife in their mind. Um, even if they do or don't believe in God, I think there are some people who still have some sort of afterlife envisioned. We still talk about it. It's like a really prevalent cultural meme. But I feel like in a sense it negatively affects our valuation of life and our appreciation for life. There was this book that I started reading and never finished a long time ago. It was called Death by. Hold on, I'm gonna find it. Death by Todd May. I never finished it, and I probably should, but it was just this. Just in reading about it, I was like, I need to find a way to develop a greater appreciation for what we have now, because nobody knows what happens after you pass. Nobody has experienced death per se, in a permanent sense, not just in the temporary sense of oh you were gone and then you were like resuscitated. And I don't want to live. I don't think we should live with our lives oriented towards that. But I make no prescriptions to how other people want to live or choose to live or believe they should live. I just, in my personal opinion, I feel as though we've we lose a little bit of something when we buy into that. Let's see what let's see what the chat is saying. Ooh, what a light question. What's your favorite part about Trinidad and Tobago? Been writing a school report and I'm loving learning about it. I think my favorite part is our diversity. And it's a little bit corny, but I really appreciate just the medley of influences we have here and the resultant variety of styles and cultural practices. And of course, we've all been homogenized in a sense in a Trinidadian identity, which has in turn been homogenized in a sense by American cultural imperialism. Um, but I do appreciate like just how many influences we can draw upon, and how that reflects in everything from the food we eat to the way that we speak. I think that's beautiful. Carrying along, right? We were talking about death. Um, Afterlife was me a bit personally. I don't know. It's used so much as an excuse to internalize oppression that I often reject it preemptively. But I don't. But I also don't usually get that fear of death stuff. Yeah, I don't know if I feel a fear of death per se. I think I'm just like I'm just aware of it, and I just know it's gonna happen, and I've accepted it. There was a point in time where I might have said, gosh, there's so many things I want to do before I die, and I really hope I don't die before this. Um, but I think everybody, I think, well, not everybody, I think most people die wishing they had done something differently or wishing they had done something that they didn't get to do yet. Um, I just want to accept that only this day in front of me is within my control. Some of my favorite music slash artists. When you ask that, I was actually listening to Tyler the Creator's recent album. But I was listening to it in the gym, trying to listen to it for the first time in the gym, and I was like, I am not feeling this for my workout. So I didn't continue it. And so I put on my usual, like, the Lucy Foods and Carti and Funk and whatever, like Knox and whatever, like British drill artists and whatever. I can't really listen to that style of music in the gym, so I put on what was familiar. But I do appreciate Tyler the Creator. I do appreciate Lil Lucy Food. I do appreciate Anderson Paak and Childish Gambino, Chloe and Haley, Denzel Curry. I'm going in alphabetical order from my Spotify. I just calling out a few. Frank Ocean, of course. Who could forget Kendrick Lamar? Jelani Aryeh. He's a kind of a steeper, but if you know, you know. JID is okay. I haven't listened to much of his stuff recently. K Tronada is still my ringtone to this day. Um, and yeah, who could do without Marvin Gaye? Carrying on, we were talking about death. You can't believe in mutual aid without being spiritual. I suppose it depends on your definition of spirituality. Let's see arguments for and against that. I would like to hear your perspective on it though. I'm unconscious for 48 hours per day. I have no problem accepting I'll someday be unconscious forever. Yeah, yeah. And the difference is at least you get to dream when you're sleeping. Um, yeah. My idea of the afterlife is who cares? Life you live here should be your biggest concern, getting society right in this world. Yeah. Oh, that gets to me. That's why I was thinking about it in the first place. You just triggered exactly what had caused me to think about that. Which was that I am really frustrated by the apocalyptic cult of evangelical Christianity. Its obsession with the rapture and the apocalypse and the resurrection and tribulations and all these different things. I'm really abhorred, abhorred by the fact that I have Christians in my life, and I would talk to them about what's going on in Palestine. They're like, yeah, that's really unfortunate. Whatever. That's if they even concede that they concede the humanity of Palestinians in some cases, but those that do, even then, they're still like, oh well, it's all part of the prophecy. It's all part of the God's plan. It's all part of like this world is not. There's a whole song about it. That like this world is not my own. To you I belong. I give myself away. All these different songs and different ideas, and they just repeated like this is not our life. This is not our world. We're living for the next world. All these different things. It really gets to me. It really, really gets to me. Where people could just excuse and ignore and dismiss so much oppression and violence and destruction taking place in this world. Oh, well, climate crisis. I mean, yeah, well, prophecy said, revelation said there's going to be like, you know, natural disasters and, wars and rumors of wars. So, like, all this is just going according to schedule. So, let me see, let me see, let me see. The afterlife is the real life. This life is just a dream. Too materialistic. May eat some shrooms. I appreciate that. I think I've considered shrooms in the past. I'm not sure if I would do it again. I'm not yes, I just have some concerns with it that I don't want to get into. Let's see. I never thought of the afterlife or God or spirituality outside them being myths. It is odd, but I do think about my past, but not much, and after that, any kind of fancy to regret or whatever. That's very topical that your name is life versus death. Look, I get the whole um believing in nothingness is also belief. Okay. Eat some shrooms. Spiritual in the sense you believe in something greater than yourself. That's such a broad definition of spiritual, though. Like, yeah, my house is greater than myself. My community is greater than myself. A tree is greater than myself. And if that's the definition of spirituality you operate with, more power to you. It's not, in my experience, a common definition of spirituality. Unless you mean by greater than yourself, you're specifically referring to like some kind of deity or higher form or being. In which case, I think that's more in alignment with what spirituality is traditionally understood as. But again, your perspective and mine, right? Shrooms haven't changed my mind about on an objective afterlife. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. At the end of the day, it's still experiences that are taking place inside your body. It's like I think shrooms would be a fun experience for sure. I don't know if it'll change my perspective in this sense. Believing in nothingness is also belief. Okay. Um, I find weird that people think lack of religion leads to not appreciating life, and I really believe the opposite is true. For sure, for sure. I agree. I think the afterlife helps people accept being ruled. Yep. Yep, yep, yep. Let's see. Many things co-opted by colonial imperialism doesn't mean it's not mean necessarily an inherent quality of it. Afterlife is constantly be many things, and tool of oppression is one. A comfort for the oppressed is another. Yeah, tool of oppression is one, comfort for the other. For the oppressed is another. That is to me two sides of the exact same coin, though. That's not to say that there aren't other coins that the afterlife possesses, but tool of oppression, comfort for the oppressed, at least in the way it was packaged in my history, as in the history of my people. that kind of came concurrently. Not fearful of death, but I fear dying painfully. Yeah, me too. I'd rather have it be quick. You live for the fact that that I'm from the same place as your favorite artist, the Queen of Rap, Nicki Minaj. You're right, Fireball. Not collecting stamps is a hobby. uh, the Netflix documentary Join or Die. I have not seen it. I don't really watch Netflix. Yeah, I'm not a fan of religious or political cults either. Shaman anarchist or shamanicist. Support from South Korea. Thank you. Do, 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 do. Fear is the mind killer. Had a near-death experience in southern Belize. Dying was terrifying, but once on the other side was infinite bliss and oneness. Interesting. I'm always interested in near-death experiences, reading about them. I find it interesting what the mind does in those conditions. Is Christianity not inherently hierarchical? I don't want to get into the Christianicist conversation right now. I didn't really even want to get into talking about Christianity that much. I just wanted to talk about the afterlife and I kind of air out my frustrations about like how the afterlife is being used to sort of dismiss the humanity and very real oppression and violence taking place around the world currently. But yeah, that's where we at. Is there anything else that I want to talk about before I go? Let's see. Buckminster Fuller said you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. I don't know anything else about Buckminster Fuller. His name is fairly familiar to me. He's an American architect. Okay, good for him. But yeah, I'm not too familiar with his stuff, but that is a fire quote. And like I've been saying now, a lot of people are not going to be convinced by words. Like there's very little point right now when trying to argue the merits of certain ideas, especially when we haven't put certain things into practice yet. Some people are only going to be moved by example. Another dimension of it is also we we can't have the expectation on ourselves that we have to have this ready-made blueprint for the new world in a silver platter. And if it isn't to the exact specifications or liking or doesn't answer some specific question, that we just poke holes through it and reject it outright. And that kind of brings into my philosophy around like how I'm trying to do my work. The way I'm trying to create my stuff, right? I'm envisioning myself as bringing together ingredients, and I see myself as like your fellow like a sous chef or like maybe not a sous chef, but like we be cooking together, you know. You're not supposed to be just sitting there in. I'm talking about like as my approach to an audience, right? Like I don't want people to like just sit there passively with my stuff and just be like they're in a high chair or a dining table, waiting to judge the menu on offer like it's chopped or something. You know, like, to me, we either cooking together or side by side. You could take the ingredients in whatever direction you want, or you could see what ingredients I presented that how we could work together on those ingredients. I want people to be in the kitchen with me, because you know your tastes, you know your dietary restrictions, I know mine. Um, so we could try and create some meals that are either compatible or divergent. But Okay, so I'm losing the analogy a bit. Basically, I'm not in the business of just sketching out the next way to live. I want to offer different options and broad strokes, and we could iron out the details in discussions. And I just find it more productive to iron out the details with people that I'm already in contact with in the real world because it has a greater impact. Not to say that international solidarity and conversations are important, but it's only like if you are in some random suburb in like Montenegro and I'm here in Trinidad. We could learn a thing or two, we could exchange some info here and there. But your conditions and context and resources and stuff and social issues are going to manifest differently from mine. And we could compare notes, but let's cook. What else are we talking about here? Nah, Huey, you're good. You're good. Just that. That's a. I think that's a tough conversation to have because I my first foray into anarchism was Christian anarchism, but that was taking place as I was also deconstructed. So I eventually moved away from Christian anarchism. Um, and in short, I think it's possible to pick and choose whatever you want out of a religion, to make a religion anything that you want it to be. But in some ways, that does make the religion a religion of one. And in some ways, we can ask to what extent is this new concoction in alignment with the broader practice, and to what extent is it just a completely new thing? And of course, Christian anarchists all have their different perspectives on Christ and on Christianity and on anarchism. So I can't really speak in broad strokes. I would have to talk to like a specific Christian anarchist, hear out their perspective, and like sort of compare and contrast it with mine. Have I heard the Gnostic theory of the soul trap? I think so. It sounds familiar. Gnostic theory of the soul trap proves that our souls are caged in an endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, not for spiritual evolution or karmic balancing, but as pawns in a grander cosmic game. Hmm. See, and now people are gonna start arguing about Christianity in the chat. Do I have an anti-Marxist Leninist playlist? No. I said earlier, I'm not sure if you were here or not. I know people kind of jump in and out of the stream, but I said earlier that I'm not really like there's very little common ground, so I don't really spend much time or much focus or much energy on Marxism Leninism. Um, I think our goals are not compatible. I think that their worker state is, to borrow analogy, a woman's patriarchy. And I'm just not into that whole sort of discourse chamber. I just feel like it loses touch with the reality of what people are focused on right now and what is necessary and the real need to oppose and propose to confront and to prefigure, to build something different, to organize here and now, to build a new and to shell the old, etc., etc., etc. I mean, y'all have seen my videos. Favorite horror movie? I don't really watch horror. I don't really like horror. I like thrillers, psychological thrillers. So I like Get Out. I like funny games. I like. The thing is, I only watch funny games once, and I think that's the maximum amount of times you need to watch it because after you've experienced it, I think it's a one-time experience, and that's all you really need from it. But yeah, Get Out was pretty good as well. And my mind is blanket on others, but yeah, I'm more of a thriller kind of guy. Hello, Amel. Greetings from Trinidad. You actually catching us catching us near the end of the stream though. I am actually about ready to start wrapping up because my timer went off like a while ago. I just kind of kept going. Jordan is asking if I have any suggested readings that are good for sharing with anarchists and curious Christians. I defer to the Christian anarchists on that. I don't think I'm the best person to make those recommendations. Hot take, but Us is better than Get Out. Yeah, that is a hot take. I actually haven't seen Us a second time. I've watched Get Out like 3 times, but I haven't seen Us for the second time yet. So maybe that position holds up, but I mean, Get Out is a classic. Yeah, Sheriff, I actually have seen Squid Game. It's good. I didn't really like the ending, and I didn't like the implication of a second season. Nor have I liked the sort of missing the point subsequent cultural phenomenon of it either. But yeah, well, yeah, I gotta call it there. I am gonna call it there. Have a good night or a good day or a good wherever you are. Um, all power to all the people. Thanks for joining me for this time. And I'm probably gonna go and take in some. Let's see what shows I have to watch. Probably watch some Ghosts. I have to finish the Jujutsu Kaisen movie, and I'm trying to start Peaky Blinders soon. So I'm gonna call it a night. Make some dinner. Take a shower. Make some dinner, and get up for tomorrow, which is more research, more prep for. I'm doing a podcast episode on the Mapuche struggle in well, what is now Chile and Argentina, and so that's going pretty well. I'm preparing for that podcast episode. Probably be recording it next month, and then I'll be releasing sometime next month or the month after. For those who don't know, I guest host It Could Happen Here twice a month. So I've recently been doing a series on Latin American anarchism. So if you're interested in anarchist history from an underappreciated corner of the world, be sure to check it out. Take care, everybody.